I think what really helped jumpstart things for me was connecting with some of the influencers and showing them that I'm intelligent and I work really hard and I do know my stuff.
Hello and welcome to the Jumpstart podcast with Jeffalytics. I'm your host, Jeff Sauer. Today, for our 33rd episode, we'll talk with Jen Havice, copywriter extraordinaire at Make Mention Media. Even though Jen and I are from the same location in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, we did not cross each other's paths until this year, 2016, but then the floodgates started to open. When I first needed some help with landing page copy for my analytics course, my friend Pep Laya at Conversion XL highly recommended that I talk to Jen for advice and help in getting things done. Then again, when I started working on my upcoming agency Jumpstart course website, Jen's name came up again and again as somebody that I need to talk to moving forward. So we met for coffee last month, and now she's a guest on the podcast. Funny how these things work out. But as you listen to Jen's career journey, this becomes a common theme. Many of the things that Jen has tried have ended up working out for her because she's really dedicated to self-study, networking with others, and mastering her craft. Now she's an in-demand, conversion-focused copywriter, and it was great to hear about that journey. This episode is particularly interesting to me because conversion copywriting is not something we've talked about regularly on the podcast. The idea of getting into the thinking behind the decisions that our prospective customers make and using feedback to increase the chances of buying really hits home to anybody who's working on the web, especially trying to sell a product. So it makes a lot of sense to provide the most clear information you can to get prospects to order and to get them to buy what you're selling. But it's not just the words that we put together, it's the way that we arrange these words to sway prospective customers into customers that really counts. During our interview, Jen gives some practical tips about how you can make this happen. Now, I could go on all day about the importance of conversion, but I'd rather have you hear it from an expert. So let's get to our interview with Jen. And if you like what Jen has to say, I definitely recommend that you check out a special offer that she has provided to our podcast listeners. It's a free download and it tells you how to get more conversions from customers using their own words. If you're interested, we'll have a link to this in the show notes. Speaking of those show notes, visit jeffalytics.com/Jen for more information. Okay, so we're here today talking with Jen Havice. Jen, thanks for joining us on the podcast.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. We met in person, a few weeks ago, and we're talking about some things in conversion, copywriting, and I thought it was so exciting what we talked about that I wanted to have you on the show.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah, it was fun. I remember me just kind of blabbering on and on and on about this and that. So yeah, no, it's great to continue the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a lot to go through. So let's start out with an easy one. What was the moment? Was it a project or something you worked on that made you become interested in this world of marketing and copywriting, conversion, whatever you want to call it?
Gosh, it was probably about 7 years ago or so. I was writing online, doing a lot of social commentary writing and blog writing, things like that. And, I got into really sort of how to market that for myself and learning everything that went into it. And then, something switched for me where I had more fun actually figuring out how to market what I was doing versus, just actually doing the social commentary writing. And so from there, it evolved into how can I bring together what I love to do, which is writing along with this marketing piece. And I fell into the conversion piece of it and the copywriting piece, joining them together and finding that you could actually test and use these processes and strategies of customer research and learning what customers actually want to apply to your messaging. And I just found it so fascinating that I dove headfirst into it. And, I just kind of kept going down that rabbit hole, learning as much as I could. And then, from there, it was all parts of conversion optimization beyond just the copywriting piece of it.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I like what you're saying around like if you write something and nobody can find it, then you need to spend time getting people to find it, right? So it's like promotion or what techniques are there that people use in order to get people to go to their site. It's actually the same way that I discovered SEO. I used to develop websites, and then one of the clients was like, well, how do people go to it? and you sort of go through this process of figuring that out, and then you go into this rabbit hole where you're just like researching everything you can around it, and then you come up with it and you say, well, actually it's probably more fun doing that piece than it might be doing the writing in the first place.
Right. And it's funny because the pendulum is shifting back a little bit for me. I miss some of the just joys of writing, but that, I can do that elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, part of it was just a matter of putting this stuff out there and realizing for the things that I was producing myself versus for other people, how do I get people to see this and read this? And then from there, really taking a step back and thinking of it more as almost a business. What's the end goal here? And why do I want people reading this? And so from there, just kind of the journey of learning about the online marketing and the conversion piece of things, then it really tying in with the fact that I realized I love doing customer research and really understanding why people seek out solutions and products and the messaging they need to hear in order to decide to buy something. So that's kind of where it evolved for me.
Yeah, that's okay. So how does this, it's a cool evolution. Like, how did you even know where to get started when this was happening? Were you just Googling for answers? Did you do online courses? Were podcasts around? How did you even think to round out your knowledge to do these things?
When I just started 7 or 8 years ago, blogging and doing kind of more the social commentary writing stuff, that was, just a matter of, wow, there are blogs, just not even really knowing that there was, that out there and, starting with that. But then after that, really getting more into the marketing piece and, taking some of my skills from other jobs in the past and things and putting it into the marketing piece, it was a matter of just diving head first into the oracle that is Google, and just going through and searching and continuing to kind of go down, like I said, these different rabbit holes. And eventually, I landed on people like Joanna Wiebe of Copy Hackers, the conversion copywriter guru. And, that sort of opened up a whole world for me, seeing how you could test messages and, take a bit more of a scientific approach to this whole copywriting thing. And then from there, looking further into the whole conversion optimization thing that's now really grown and become huge. And it's really become a big part of online marketing. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of it was just going online and really spending the time to search for these things. And you know how it goes. One thing leads to another. And then after that, just being super proactive and literally emailing people, and asking questions. And you would be surprised that, people will be kind and they will, not all the time, but they will email you back and point you in the right direction.
Absolutely. And I think that's the key to it is it's one thing to read about it, but then it's how do you put it into action? And sometimes it's asking other people how to do it. But then I think it's unique in the writing world where you can have almost an immediate impact and you can learn these things. And if you have the ability to write, then you can write, you can put it into action immediately versus things like if you're learning about search, if you're learning about analytics, you need to have some kind of baseline in order to analyze something. So you can't just like put something out there and then be an analyst. You really need to have data sets. So I think it is fairly unique that with words you can really have, you can know immediately whether it's working, and you can test, and you can get that feedback you need.
Right.
So what type of projects were you working on to do that then? Was it still for yourself, or was it for a company, or how did that work?
You know what? I pretty much decided that I was just going to do this. Kind of like Pep Laya, of Conversion XL. I know he just sort of decided one day. I mean, he'd been in the online marketing world for a long time, but was like, I'm going to do this, and did it. And I think that was a little bit of the approach that I had. I just decided, I'm just going to do this. And so it was a bit of an evolution. And I had started doing some social media strategy work for some small businesses and doing some of that. But then it evolved to, how can I take this copywriting piece and apply it to the online marketing world and do it in such a way that hopefully it's getting measurable results and tying it into the whole conversion thing. So, like anything, when you start out, it's about just doing whatever you can, taking on some small projects. I had done a ton of reading and, research, and had done some of these courses, like through Joanna and Pep and all that kind of thing. But part of it was just diving in and doing small projects and, for small businesses, and starting there and building up, some sort of track record and knowledge base. And, it's kind of a really long haul. It's a slog, just, 'cause there's so much that you need to know and understand. And, I feel like I've gotten the equivalent of a master's degree or 2 master's degrees, just over the last 5 years of, just diving in. And so beyond just doing the work piece of it, it's just this constant continuing education that you get between, staying up to date with all of the reading and doing things like, reaching out to people out in the field who have been doing this much longer and just saying, what can I do? Can I, work with you on X project and get some experience doing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
To, I know Joanna would I think she still does it every year. She will run a series of tests where, she's just doing the tests to support some hypothesis that she has. Basically, it's on a pro bono basis, but it's just to get, to get some results and to validate some ideas that she has about copywriting out there. And so, I had reached out to her when I knew she was running another one of these, and I just was like, I'm not in Vancouver. If I was, I would run out and get you coffee, whatever you need. But is there some way I can be involved with this? And she was really kind, and she's like, okay, and she let me be part of it and help with running some of the A/B tests. So, I think it's partly just a matter of just being willing to throw yourself out there, even if you're not on some of these projects getting paid initially, just getting some experience and, going from there.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty cool evolution of how it works, right? So you recognize, well, one, you have a need, so you go and try to figure out a solution for it. You find out that the solution is actually sometimes more interesting than you think, and so you're like, okay, well, I want to learn everything about this, and this all sounds good, what I'm reading, but the thing that I really need is practical experience. And so it is similar to what I was talking about with an analytics account. Without having some kind of data, the analytics aren't there. And so if you don't have some kind of product or something that you're working to sell, or some kind of platform, then the words may not make much of a difference. So you need to go and
Right.
get a platform to do it, whether it's for somebody's product or doing nonprofit type stuff, getting that experience and just soaking it all in. And then eventually you have enough experience where you can say, hey, I'm one of these people. I'm one of them. I'm
Right.
doing this, and this is I made that transition from, soaking up all the knowledge to spreading the knowledge myself and to practicing what I preach.
Right. And basically, like I said, reaching out and taking every opportunity possible to work on things and gain experience until you get to a point where you're like, wow, okay, I've been doing this for quite a while and I've got my own clients and I'm getting measurable results and grow from there. But you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to admit that, I had to start somewhere and I did. And,
Yep.
and it's, it's a lot of hard work and lots of hours, but it's been really interesting and phenomenal experience.
Yeah.
And the people that I've met have just been so great.
Yeah, and so so as you got into it and as you became more experienced, then, I mean, obviously it looks like you've been on your own for a while, building your own company, doing this. How did you get clients once you decided this is, once you said, I am a copywriter, I am into conversion rate optimization. How did you find clients? Was it through these networking connections you made, or did you have do business development? Did you what they call your own dog food and have like a website that was persuasive to do that? How did that part work?
Yeah, I think back and I'm like, gosh, I was afraid you were going to ask me that. I was like, how did I do it? Part of it is putting your shingle out. Like I said, taking on whatever you can, small projects. And then from there, it's just a matter of, I think what really helped jumpstart things for me was connecting with some of the influencers and showing them that I'm intelligent and I work really hard and I do know my stuff. Creating relationships with them and from there doing things like writing guest blog posts. I don't know how effective that is still, but I think it was really helpful for me because it helped me establish an authority piece or just sort of body of work where people could go and see, wow, she does really know what she's talking about, and she expresses herself really well, and this is how she approaches problems, and also sort of points to the type of work you do. So, doing that was incredibly helpful, and it's laborious and hard work, but it's so time consuming.
Yeah.
But, I've probably written, 20 really beefy guest posts all over the place. And, those things still live out there and people still retweet them and, will mention them from time to time. So, I think doing things like that, along with, really making an effort to connect with those people that are bigger in the industry and who, the people that you admire and who are doing the type of work that you want to do, and you feel like are really doing it right. So that's a matter of, I know it costs money, but taking one of their courses. And so you're not only getting the education piece through them, but you're also getting a direct line to that person. And, you're getting on their radar screen. And so that's, I would say, been really helpful too.
Yeah. No, I think it's the same thing that I would recommend anybody is it's this whole concept of building a brand. I mean, you
Right.
did all the efforts that you did were there to build a brand for yourself. And so if you put 20 articles on the internet on, as guest posts and pieces that are out there, eventually you become who you position yourself as the expert in this area. And then also even meeting these people in person, taking their courses, talking to them. Those are all the things you do in order to build up a personal brand in the industry. And so
Right.
that's exactly what people should be doing in order to get to that point. And then
Right. And I realize it costs money and it takes resources, but even if you choose just one conference a year to go to, where it's going to be your opportunity to connect with not just potential clients, but influencers. I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially if you want to, depending on where you want to go. But if you want to be a independent contractor, have your small a business or an agency, whatever that ends up being, then that's how you generate business, is to go to these conferences, to talk to people, to get referrals. I know that you were referred to me by Pep, actually, at one point when I was working on something. He's like, hey, you need to talk to Jen. She's great. And so that is how this stuff happens in this industry, is
Right.
that if you do good work and you do good by people, they're going to really help you out. And I think that especially conversion optimization, having been to some conferences and talked to a lot of people, it's one of the most open and really accepting places out there. People are willing to share the wealth. People are really all looking at the same thing, which is to make better website experiences. So it's really cool that you are plugged in there.
Yeah, it has been really interesting experience, and you're right. I mean, I do think that people are very open to sharing their experiences, and this is what worked for me, and how can we make things better and more transparent. I know for me, it's about listening to people and mirroring back, their experiences and helping them achieve their goals online so that, they're getting what they want. And ultimately that's helping these businesses grow.
Absolutely. So I have some questions about, some more tactical questions about the process you go through. One of them is, we talked about new business development. It seems like you've started to specialize in specific use cases, specific niches that you work in. Is that true? I think you had said something about working with software businesses, subscription type businesses.
Yeah. I do really enjoy subscription model businesses, SaaS, but also the non-SaaS subscription model businesses. So things like membership sites. And I do, from time to time, we'll do some e-commerce, but I've been trying to focus a little bit more on the subscription model businesses and helping them, not so much acquisition, but conversion once people get to the site and getting them from, point A to point B, and whether that's, signing up for that free trial or actually purchasing. That's what's been sort of most interesting for me, and the whole qualitative research piece of it, and figuring out why.
Yeah, so
why people are coming.
That's a question I have is the why part. So let's just talk about a scenario. So there's a subscription website, monthly subscription to get information or something like that, membership to a site, and people may sign up, they may not, but they're looking for a compelling reason to sign up for this service. So they are looking for what's in it, what's inside, what am I going to get, how is that going to solve the problem I have. They probably have some reservations about it as well. Is this going to be too expensive? Am I going to get what I need? Is this going to be an auto bill that I can't figure out how to cancel? So how do you had mentioned that you use qualitative research to put down those doubts. What is that process like? Do you use survey tools? Do you interview these people? How does that work?
Yeah, so what I most like to rely on are, if not interviews, are survey answers. So if you've got a list, an email list, being able to, ask your current customers or recent customers questions, and preferably open-ended questions. I mean, some yes or no or multiple choice are fine, but some open-ended questions so that you can actually really get to the language that your prospects are using, and also really understand the reasons why, what are their motivations? Why are they coming? How aware are they of you and your solution or their problem? Things like that really are important to understand so that you know how much of an argument you need to make on the page, how much information these people need in order to make a decision and to push them further along their path. So somebody who is not aware of your brand, they're not even all that aware of the fact that there are solutions to their problems, or the specific problem that they have, they're going to need a whole lot more of an argument to help persuade them, and to help them understand the fact that there's this great solution to their problem and you're the one who has it, and why you're different, and also give them information at key points that's going to alleviate friction. Like you were saying, is this truly a free trial? Am I going to have to give you my credit card? Is this site secure? Things like that. So it's a matter of using things like surveys, user testing, where you're getting people to go through your site after giving them some tasks to do, and to see how they're navigating your site and the types of problems they're encountering while they're going through it, so that you can figure out, wow, okay, I see what's going on here, why people are getting stuck, and these are the types of messages and flow that I need to create in order to help them make a decision.
Yeah. So a lot of it's just, obviously you take all that research and then the organization part seems like it's really important as well. And you had used the word flow. It's flowing
Right.
them through that process to go through it. And then it seems like one page is responsible for taking people from many different aspects or many different knowledge levels and trying to get them all to do the same conclusion. So it's sort of balancing all that as well.
Yeah. It's, a lot of it has to do with going through and really knowing the right questions to ask so that you get data that's usable. Because sometimes I'll get clients coming to me and they'll say, oh, well, we've done a whole bunch of qualitative research and, here's our survey results and X, Y, and Z. And I look at it and I'm like, well, this is great, but this isn't giving me the information I need to help fix the problems that are on your site. So, a lot of it is just knowing the questions to ask, first of all, and getting the right information and the right data so that you can draw some conclusions and come up with some hypotheses as to, what needs to change and so you can get, the conclusion that you're hoping for.
Yeah. So what are some typical results that you might expect from that type of approach? So if something's doing not very well and somebody brings you in, are the results, I mean, obviously I assume that there's some extreme benefits that can be gleaned from taking that approach, but do you have any examples of like what somebody can expect by being more user focused, qualitative, incorporating their research and incorporating a structure?
Yeah. So like one project I worked on, and I have a colleague who does more the quantitative side of things, goes through all the Google Analytics, and I do more of the qualitative end of things. We had gone through all of the research, and this was for a subscription site, and, realized that people coming to the homepage, they were landing, and initially the site was sending people like directly to the plans and pricing page. And after going through all of the research, we realized that people weren't ready for that yet. They weren't quite there in their journey. I mean, we did other things on the homepage, giving them more information and messaging, headlines, subheadlines that keyed in much more directly with what they were looking for and what they wanted to get out of doing these online courses. So that was very helpful. But then instead of sending them directly to the plans and pricing page, we sent them to the curriculum page, which was, set up to give them more information about, what these courses were that they were going to be taking, what they were going to get out of them, how it was going to sort of further them along. And we also included a video up on the homepage of the guy who runs these courses. And I had him talk all about what these courses were going to do for these people in terms of their careers and their aspirations, things like that. And so what was really interesting is what we found was that, conversions increased on the main call to action. I can't remember, it was like by 60% or something like that, just by making those changes. But what was really interesting was the fact that even though less people made it to the plans and pricing page, conversions went up, and we saw an increase in revenue. Mm-hmm. So, it helped to validate for us the fact that, people did need to see this messaging as soon as they landed, and it was helpful to direct them to another page before they hit the plans and pricing page so that they could get that information they needed. They weren't quite ready to just be, bombarded by here's the price and here are the plans. They needed more than that. And so,
yep.
It actually sort of better qualified the people that landed on the plans and pricing page. So those are the types of things that, doing that research can really help. And so you can change the flow and the messaging and ultimately it's not just about increasing conversions, it's about the bottom line and increasing revenue.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny because when I teach analytics, I always say that analytics can tell you what happened and by how much. But
not why.
It doesn't really tell you why, and so why? But why is, if you don't understand why, then you're never going to get beyond a certain point, and so you need to get at that, and that's the whole discipline that you've obviously mastered and that you're implementing for a lot of companies right now.
And I think that's one of the things that I just find a little bit frustrating is that sometimes the qualitative end of things is sort of poo-pooed, or it's not that important, or the words aren't that important. So maybe the qualitative research is important, you understand why, but anybody can throw words up on the page. And, I think that there's the science behind understanding the what and the why, but there is a craft to putting together the words in such a way that's going to be compelling. Mm-hmm. And that goes to that piece that's you can't quantify, but mm-hmm. is important to a brand and to connecting to people.
Yeah, and I think you can quantify it in some ways. You can quantify the results. You can't really use an analytics tool to tell you what direction to go in, but when it works, like you said, it leads to revenue. It leads to more opportunities, and we're talking
right.
about serious opportunities. We're talking about thousands, tens of thousands, millions of dollars that can be done on the right size business by fixing these things. And this is
right.
I mean, really, it's what all of the savvy online companies are doing. They're not just putting something out there and hoping that it works. They're doing incremental, continuous little improvements to make it better.
Right. Well, a lot of them are. Not all of them.
Yeah.
Some of them still just kind of throw things out there and hope for the best. But yeah. So, no, I mean, it's really interesting. It can make a huge difference. I think that the challenge is getting, a lot of these businesses to buy into the fact that you need to do the research, because a lot of them want to simply just jump to the tangible, the deliverable, mm-hmm. Which is, the reworked page and, the new copy, the new design, all of that sort of thing. And it just does not work real well unless you do that big, important first step.
Yeah, I found that a lot of companies, what they'd rather do is throw more money at a problem, like in media and in traffic, than they would in making that existing traffic better. Because a lot of times the incentive plans for companies are tied to top-line revenue growth, not necessarily more profit or doing better with what you have. It's getting more of it.
It's all about acquisition. And, there's such a huge opportunity for, not just conversion, but retention, it's so much easier to keep people than getting new ones, or it's cheaper generally. So yeah, it's unfortunate. And to me, I think, unfortunately for me, I feel like that's a big uphill battle is that whole education piece, that there's really value in the research and understanding, what your customers need and delivering messages that resonate with them and having them feel heard.
Yeah. I think the other thing is that it's labor intensive too. So it does take time. There's no real shortcuts. And I think that a lot of these online companies are looking for a technology solution, not a people solution. And so that can be a turnoff to them when they're looking at this. They say, oh, well, why can't we just automate that? Why can't we just have the computers do it? And that's one of the things where it doesn't really work that way.
Right.
It's really interesting to hear this perspective, because I think that I'm known as the analytics guy. But what I always try to say is that analytics just tell you, like I said, tell you what happened and by how much. But the why is really what makes the money for companies. So it's cool to hear your perspective. So do you have any? One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you after this is done to send over some resources for people who are looking to get started, because I do think that several listeners are going to be like, "Wow, I didn't realize how cool this was," or "This sounds interesting to me," and they might want to get involved there. So if you can recommend, even on the podcast now, like places to go, that'd be cool.
Yeah, well, people can always go to my site, which is makementionmedia.com, and I know you guys will have a link to it. And I've got some blog posts and things on there that may be helpful. And then as well, I've got a page where I've been quote unquote featured in. So that's got a list of, all the articles that I've written, all over the place. And so that will also be really helpful for people to to go to, like Conversion XL or, Copy Hackers, Unbounce, to get some other good information about this whole niche.
Great. I think those will be really helpful, and those are the same ones that I've been reading as well. I sort of dabble in it just to be informed, but a lot of those blogs are so useful, and there's so much practical knowledge in there that it really, a lot of these blog posts just blow your mind with the things you can do and the things that need to get done. Of course, some of us are probably like, oh, that's just more work to do, but obviously that work can have really high dividends when you're talking about persuading more people to purchase your product or service.
Right. And sometimes it's just a matter of knowing, even if you don't know how to do a certain thing, it's just knowing that it's out there and that's a piece of the puzzle, so you can find the right person to help you with it. Absolutely.
So we're almost near the end of our time, and so I just wanted to ask you another question. That is, what advice do you have for somebody who's looking to get started here? So we were talking about your journey about getting started, and obviously it's soaking up knowledge, being a sponge, learning what you can, reaching out to people, some really practical tips there. But is there anything that specifically you might recommend to somebody who listened to this and said, hey, this might be what I want to do next?
I would say start by just getting really familiar with who the big players are out there, reading what they're putting out, subscribe to their newsletter. I know it sounds sort of corny, but, do that, read what they're saying. And then, even things like Conversion XL, they've got a Facebook group. And I don't, at this point, I don't even think there's really a barrier to entry for that. So, you could join things like that where you're just getting into those conversations with the people who are doing this, and seeing the questions that they're asking and the conversations that they're having. I think that alone is incredibly valuable and helpful. And, and then that's also another way to just sort of, kind of chime in and ask questions and, kind of get your feet wet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a member of that Facebook group as well, the Conversion XL, and I would highly recommend that anybody listening to this asked to become a member. I'm not sure what the entry requirements are. Somehow I got into it, and so if I can get into it, anybody can.
It used to be just for people in his courses, I think, and now I believe he's pretty much just opened it up. So whether it's that or something else, I would just get on Twitter, start interacting with some of these people, and go from there. I think that's kind of the best way to do it. And then once you've gotten yourself going, get out there and write a blog post for one of these publications, because that's a terrific way to get noticed and start building authority. Absolutely.
I would recommend that. I agree with that. And I think just putting yourself out there you have to do it at some point, especially in this area where it's so visible and noticeable, and you have to have experience to really take on bigger challenges and bigger clients. Your first project's not going to be doing conversion optimization for Amazon.com. That's not where you're going to start. You need to prove yourself out and practice and get some people in place and gather that experience. And believe it or not, and actually this shouldn't be too hard to believe, there's a lot of people who would take people's best effort to create a landing page in the event that it can help them out, because people are, small businesses especially, are tapped and they need resources.
Absolutely.
They need people who can help. I've had people offer to help me with my landing pages, and I accept those offers a lot of the times, because there's just only so much you can get done, and so having a lead on something can really help you out. And so I think that there are opportunities to gather experience in this industry for sure.
do it, and then, you get a good result and ask for a testimonial, and start building that up and getting those on your site. And one thing leads to another.
Yep, exactly.
And I'm on your podcast, so there you go.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Yeah. So, yep. I mean, it's sort of funny. The sequence of events is, I don't know if we're from the same area, from the Minneapolis, St. Paul area, but I don't know if we met until maybe this year. We were introduced, and then from there we met in person. People are talking about it. Now you're on the podcast, like you said. Just
right.
keep on chatting and having these conversations, and that's how things go.
Yeah, exactly. And be generous, and that'll do well by you.
Absolutely. So, yeah, thanks for joining us on the podcast. It was really awesome to have you, Jen.
Really appreciate it, and thanks so much.
Okay, so how many of you heard Jen's interview and considered a career change? It's pretty cool how Jen was able to take her passion and turn it into an in-demand career. The relationships she has gained, the hard work that she spent learning, it's all paid off. And it's no coincidence that multiple people told me that I need to talk to Jen because she's the real deal. It was great to hear about how her journey started with learning and curiosity. I feel many of us start at the same point. But it's also nice to hear about her evolution from student to teacher, as she's now teaching people how to get better at generating conversions. And so if you're interested in this topic, be sure to check out her download in the show notes. That's all for today's episode. For show notes, visit Jeffalytics.com/Jen.
I dove headfirst into it, and that sort of opened up a whole world for me. Putting this stuff out there, and you know how it goes. One thing leads to another. Taking a step back and thinking of what's the end goal here. Learning what customers actually want to apply to your messaging. Test messages. Take a bit more of a scientific approach to this whole copywriting thing. And then from there, look further into the whole conversion optimization.